So, Janice, what's the latest here?
Craig, this is the boldest move so far by the Trump administration to crack down on international students in the United States. In a statement overnight, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said they will aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students. National security concerns have lingered for years, and accusations that China's government is recruiting Chinese scientists who've been trained in the U.S. or using them to commit espionage or intellectual property theft.
Behind me is the US Embassy in Beijing. Previously, it was very common to see long lines of Chinese students applying for visas there to study at American universities, many of them from wealthy backgrounds.
Students in the US are vulnerable and subject to bullying and oppression. Many US policies target Chinese students and impose restrictions on them.
The United States is launching a full-scale assault on Chinese students, revoking visas by the thousands and tearing apart dreams overnight. This is not a drill. This is not a warning. It's a relentless crackdown targeting anyone with even the faintest link to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields like science and technology. But things don't end here. There's another twist. Rumors suggest Xi Jinping's own daughter is enrolled at Harvard. If so, any visa revocation wouldn't just echo through diplomatic halls, it would strike uncomfortably close to home.
She claims the Chinese president's daughter, Xi Mingzi, is living in Massachusetts. Apparently, she studies at Harvard. And Laura Loomer wants to go confront her. Now, as of now, this is a claim that Xi's daughter lives in the US. Xi Mingzi is Xi Jinping's only daughter. She leads a very private life. She did study at Harvard, but that was from 2010 to 2014.
The Chinese foreign minister firmly rejected the move, asserting that it undermines the reputation of the United States.
The US side's actions has exposed that the so-called freedom and openness that the US has always claimed are lies and will only further damage America's own international image.
The US hosts a total of 1.13 million international students, and remarkably, nearly 277,000 of them are from China, making up almost 25% of the entire foreign student population. But they are now in a limbo. Hundreds of thousands of students are suddenly facing deportation, their futures shattered with barely a moment's notice. Universities are scrambling, families are terrified, and international relations are spiraling into uncharted territory. Today, we're exposing the harsh reality behind this aggressive US policy, why it's happening, who's caught in the crossfire, and what it means for the future of education and global diplomacy. On May 28, 2025, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio dropped a bombshell. The United States will aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students, targeting those with any ties to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in so-called critical fields like science, technology, engineering, and math. This is not a subtle warning. It's a full-scale crackdown under President Trump's directive to tighten immigration and national security controls amid escalating US-China tensions over trade, technology, and global dominance. The State Department is working hand-in-hand with Homeland Security to ruthlessly cancel visas while simultaneously slashing future visa approvals by ramping up scrutiny of every application from China and Hong Kong. Visa interviews for students and exchange visitors have been paused indefinitely as the government rolls out invasive social media vetting. Chinese students, many come from privileged backgrounds, often with indirect or direct Communist Party ties, which the US government is using as grounds for visa revocation. This crackdown goes beyond just academics. It targets students involved in political activism, including those supporting Palestine or protesting on campuses, with visa cancellations and even deportations already underway. Some of Harvard students are supporting this.
I see that Harvard's really standing up against what he's doing, and I'm very proud that they've really stood up against what he's doing and standing up for what's right.
Like, if the idea is that we are under threat from, for instance, like foreign adversaries who are trying to increase their ability to compete with us, I think this completely cuts the lifeblood of the ability of the United States to adequately respond to those things.
Universities like Harvard and Stanford are reeling as students face sudden and unexplained visa terminations, sometimes with only days to leave the country. This aggressive policy marks the most severe move yet in the Trump administration's campaign against Chinese students, aiming to cut off what it calls a pipeline of talent feeding China's military-industrial complex. But critics warn it's a blunt, sweeping attack that threatens academic freedom, damages US universities financially, and risks alienating a vital source of global talent. Why does Trump want to isolate China? Many believe this isn't just about national security or academic integrity, it's about power and fear. At the core of Trump's aggressive stance lies a deeper concern: China's explosive economic growth, which in recent years has started to outpace the US in key global sectors, from manufacturing and technology to infrastructure and trade influence. As China rises, some in Washington see it not just as a competitor, but as a threat to US dominance on the world stage. The visa cancellations, tech bans, trade tariffs, and diplomatic freezes may all be pieces of a broader strategy to slow down China's momentum, by any means necessary. The Chinese government has condemned the move as discriminatory, while US universities scramble to support students left in limbo. This visa war is unfolding amid a broader battle for technological supremacy and geopolitical power between the world's two largest economies. Who exactly is caught in the crosshairs of this sweeping US crackdown? But here's the chilling part. The Trump administration has not clearly defined what counts as a connection to the Chinese Communist Party. It could be direct membership, family ties, or even funding sources linked to the party. This vague, sweeping standard means that millions of students could suddenly find their visas revoked without warning. Reports are already emerging of students at elite universities like Harvard, Stanford, and UC Berkeley being stripped of their legal status, sometimes given as little as 72 hours to pack up and leave the country. Imagine being months away from graduation, your entire future thrown into chaos overnight.
The US side's actions has exposed that the so-called freedom and openness that the US has always claimed are lies and will only further damage America's own international image.
The crackdown doesn't just target students in labs and classrooms. Chinese students involved in political activism, including those supporting causes like Palestine or protesting on campuses, are also facing visa cancellations and deportations. This is a broad, aggressive net that's sweeping up anyone deemed a risk, regardless of their individual actions. For many, the uncertainty is unbearable. Students like Anson at Georgetown University describe a climate of fear and anxiety, unsure if they'll be able to finish their studies or return after trips home. Others, like Sue at Columbia University, have already changed their plans, rushing to leave the US before their visas are revoked. This policy threatens to decimate a vital pipeline of talent that has fueled American innovation for decades. About 80% of Chinese students in STEM remain in the US after graduation, contributing to cutting-edge research and the economy. Cutting off this flow could cause lasting damage to US universities and industries that rely on this global talent pool. In short, this is not just a visa policy, it's a devastating blow to thousands of young lives and a seismic shift for the future of American education and technology. Why is the US government launching this ruthless assault on Chinese students? The official line is national security, a vague excuse to justify a sweeping crackdown fueled by paranoia and political posturing. Under the guise of protecting sensitive technology, the Trump administration is weaponizing immigration policy to punish an entire group of students, many of whom have done nothing more than pursue their education in America. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his allies are obsessively scrutinizing Chinese students' backgrounds, academic work, and even their social media posts, hunting for any tenuous link to the Chinese Communist Party. But what exactly constitutes a connection? The administration refuses to clarify, leaving students terrified that family ties, funding sources, or innocent associations could become grounds for sudden visa revocation. This aggressive purge is part of a broader campaign by the Trump administration to escalate tensions with China, rolling out tariffs, restricting trade, and now systematically dismantling educational ties that have long benefited both nations. The State Department has even paused all new student visa appointments from China and Hong Kong, while expanding invasive social media vetting, turning what should be a fair process into a Kafkaesque ordeal. The administration's attack doesn't stop at students. It's also targeting prestigious universities like Harvard, revoking their ability to enroll international students and threatening other institutions with similar sanctions. Experts warn this crackdown will have lasting, damaging effects far beyond the immediate crisis. Talented students, once eager to study in the US, will now look elsewhere, to Australia, Canada, Europe, seeking safer, more welcoming environments. Chinese state media has long hyped gun violence in the US and violent protests during the pandemic, and portrayed the US as a dangerous place that wasn't safe for its citizens. The tense bilateral relationship has also meant that some Chinese students are opting to study in the UK or other countries over the US after the pandemic. Take Kiwi Zhang, a bright first-year PhD student in computer science. After presenting his research at an international conference, he was detained for 48 hours at the US border. Officials seized his laptop and phone, interrogated him relentlessly about his ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and then deported him, banned from the US for 5 years on suspicion he denies. "I never imagined this could happen to me," he says quietly. "I feel powerless to defend my rights." Or Joyce, who earned a coveted offer from Harvard to pursue her master's in architecture. Her visa is still valid, but she's too afraid to return home for the summer, terrified she might be denied re-entry. "I can't help wishing I'd grown up in a better time, when US-China relations were less hostile," she confesses. Countless students share this anguish, watching their hard work, sacrifices, and hopes evaporate overnight. Even America's elite institutions are under scrutiny. The State Department cited Harvard University's ties to China as a reason to suspend its ability to enroll foreign students, a stunning move temporarily blocked by a federal judge. In Trump's first 100 days of his second term, 4,000 student visas were revoked, with officials claiming 90% involved serious criminal records. Professors and university leaders warn this isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a catastrophe for America's future. These students are the lifeblood of innovation, research, and economic growth. Losing them means losing vital talent, scientific breakthroughs, and global leadership. Yet amid the fear and despair, some students remain determined. They vow to fight for their dreams, navigating endless paperwork and uncertainty. But the emotional toll is undeniable. Shattered lives, broken families, and dreams deferred by a policy that sees them not as individuals, but as pawns in a geopolitical battle. This is more than a visa crisis. This story is unfolding rapidly, with profound consequences for hundreds of thousands of. But now, under the Trump administration's directive, many face sudden visa revocations and intense scrutiny, with unclear criteria that could uproot their lives overnight. The pause on new visa interviews and expanded social media vetting adds layers of uncertainty for future applicants. As tensions between the world's two largest economies escalate, the question remains. The visa crackdown is part of a broader assault on immigration, with student visa interviews suspended and social media profiles scanned for red flags. Chinese students and their families are now gripped by fear and confusion, with some calling it a modern-day Chinese Exclusion Act. Is this harsh crackdown a necessary step to protect national security, or is it an overreach that sacrifices innocent students and damages America's global standing? We want to hear from you. What do you think about this controversial policy? How should the US balance security concerns with the rights and futures of international students?